Test, test, check 1, 2, test 1, 2.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. To those in attendance, welcome. Thank you for being here. We'll go ahead and get today's meeting started. This is Monday, January 13th, 2025. It is 1:01 p.m., a workshop of the Flagler County Board of County Commissioners. If you could please stand for the pledge to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, it looks like we have everybody here today, so no need for the roll call. We're 100% in attendance. At this time of the meeting, we also take a brief moment of silence. And today, in addition to our normal moment of silence, we should recognize those that are experiencing the wildfires in California. That's a horrific occurrence that they're dealing with. So we take this moment of individual prayer, reflection, and meditation, this time to honor and remember our first responders and the men and women in our military who keep us safe and protect our freedoms at home and abroad. All right, thank you very much again for being here today. We have a few things on the agenda. We're going to review budget policies and priorities, capital projects, and our final item is on airport items. There's 2 items on the agenda tonight that we'll review in addition to other issues. So with that, we'll start with fiscal year 26 budget priorities, policies, and budget priorities. Ms. Petito.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for being here. Just wanted to follow up since we met last week to do a series of one-on-ones. We have a few things today that we're going to go over. The first being the outcome of the discussion regarding fiscal year 26 budget, outlining the board's policies and funding priorities as we move forward with the creation of that budget. And then we've got some capital project discussion. This is really to talk about some of the changes that we need to present to you for the current fiscal year 25 capital projects. And then we'll go over what we've accomplished at the airport and things that we're working on there. So again, last week we conducted our series of one-on-one discussions with each of you to discuss the board's direction as we start to develop fiscal year 26 budget. We did receive some great feedback in addition to the policies and priorities that we will use as we move forward with creating the budget. And some of those are more aligned with maybe how some of you would prefer to receive information, especially around capital projects or things of interest that, we're going to work towards providing summaries more timely. And we've got some things that we'll include as we develop the budget that weren't necessarily policies and priorities, but just some comments in general about maybe stormwater or beaches and things like that. So we'll go ahead and look at the board's budget policy. So as we prepare for the upcoming budget, our focus remains on aligning financial planning with our strategic vision. This process ensures sustainable growth of staff and our programs, making sure that we address economic challenges and that we're meeting the evolving needs of our community. We will incorporate current economic conditions, including inflation, market trends, so that we're making more informed decisions. And then we'll be sure to ensure that every dollar is spent effectively, maximizing value through efficiency and innovation. And we will identify and utilize grants, partnerships, and other funding sources to extend our budgetary reach. We did receive some great feedback on the updated strategic plan. That's something we talked about at our last meeting. We will be bringing that forward for adoption, that updated strategic plan at your February board meeting. So we'll be bringing that to you again as well. So as we look for the budget guidance for fiscal year 26, again, in alignment with our strategic plan, this year's budget preparation will focus on maintaining fiscal responsibility while supporting key priorities that drive long-term community benefits. With a flat or reduced millage rate, we aim to achieve a balanced budget that reflects prudent stewardship of public funds. Our key funding priority will be focused on beach management, employee retention, and merit. We will restrict new operational or programmatic spending unless clearly justified by an urgent need or if it's offset by cost saving somewhere else. That way, ensuring that all of our budget requests demonstrate measurable impact and alignment with strategic objectives. And then as we evaluate our capital projects, we will conduct a thorough evaluation of all proposed and ongoing capital projects, prioritizing projects critical to community safety, infrastructure resilience, and items of deferred maintenance. We will continue to protect and enhance the quality of life of our residents while ensuring financial stability. So this is really just the guidance that we have moving forward. And as we look to the next steps of what we have coming up, we will be doing our budget kickoff with you February 10th. And the following day, it will be internal with the departments as well as the constitutional officers. And then you'll also establish what that budget calendar for fiscal year 26 looks like. So those are all going to be brought to you at your February 10th meeting. So at our last meeting, we had discussed capital projects, more of a broader view. We shared with you the 5-year plan. We did have discussion about that. We received some input on projects that you all would like to see included. The two that come to mind are the renovation or refresh of the David Siegel Adult Daycare on Belterre. And we will look to add that to the creation of fiscal year 26 CIP program. We also discussed a placeholder for a new Wadsworth Park concrete skate park, as well as the desire to identify funding for some equipment replacement ahead of that. So I did want to share with you in your backup, you should have a copy of a quote that we had been provided for skate park equipment. Looking at this slide, this is some proposed changes to the fiscal year 25 CIP. I did mention that you have that quote in your backup. We were able to identify funding that was remaining in other capital projects that can be reallocated for this purpose. I also wanted to bring to your attention 2 other CIP projects from prior years where a little bit more funding is needed to complete them. As you know, we've been working on the new Public Works facility. That's the one located on the corner of State Road 100 and County Road 305. This project had originally started several years ago. I think it was fiscal year 22. Since that time, costs have changed. We also need to put in a well and a septic system to accommodate that facility. So we were looking to reallocate $50,000 into that project. And then the other project that needed a little bit more money was the outdoor basketball court at the Carver Center. This item was a deferred item for many years. It did get funded in fiscal year 24. In moving forward with the project, it came to our attention that the subbase will need to be replaced out there. So it's more than just a resurface. It has to be completely rebuilt with the subbase, which is adding some additional cost there. The additional is about 30,000 on that outdoor basketball court. And then there were two new ones, in addition to the Wadsworth skate park equipment. You have two new ones that I wanted to bring to your attention. They do fall within my signature authority, but I just figured today would be a good opportunity to bring them up and wrap it into this discussion. So the first one is the EOC. EOC will be receiving a new roof following some hurricane damage. The material was delivered last week. We had anticipated painting the exterior of that building. It was on our list of projects. It's 2 years out, so it would be fiscal year '27. But right now, we have an opportunity to get ahead of it and to do it now following the roof replacement. So what I would propose is that we go ahead and allocate money so that we can do that work. And then the other item was to replace the security system and access control at the Ag Extension or the UF-IFAS office. We have experienced some security concerns out there. I think you're aware that there was two little goats that had been removed from one of the barns out there, and we've had some additional alarms going off in the middle of the night where somebody had tried to force entry into the back of the facility. So there is some security concerns out there that we'd like to move forward with that as well. All of these changes do not increase the budget. This is coming from savings on projects that once they're complete and there is money remaining, we're able to reallocate some of that existing funding to accomplish these tasks. So if the board is okay with moving forward on these items, we'll come back to you in February, and you'll have an amended fiscal year '25 CIP. This is typical. We do this throughout the year. It's just today we're trying to bring it all to you at once, since we were going to talk about the skate park equipment. Does anybody have any questions about any of these items or comments?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, could you go up to the, under new, could you go up to the ADA compliance and help me understand the ADA compliance?
So when you're looking at this table, the gray block area, that's the new project that we're going to complete. This is where the money's coming from. So it's coming from leftover savings in those projects. So there had been money left over from prior fiscal years. Typically with your capital projects, once you establish a capital project, if the work doesn't get completed that fiscal year, some of these roll over from year to year.
Well, we met the compliance. We just over budgeted what we needed, and that was left over.
So every year, for some of them, like you'll see ADA compliance is in the budget every year. So as things get identified through risk management,
Okay.
repairs need to be made, we budget for it. If we don't spend it, typically the money will roll over. It's the same that you'll see with some of the HVAC replacement is another one. It's an annual thing that we anticipate. However, if we don't spend all the money, it's just, it just kind of stays in the capital program budget. So this is just reallocating some of the funds. We had a savings on the roof replacement at the courthouse next door. Station 41, you see a lot of funding for Station 41 expansion. Originally, we had proposed that we were going to contract that out. We were able to do it internally at a savings of about $160,000. So we're just reapplying that savings or the money that we didn't have to spend contracting it out. And so it's filling the void on a bunch of these different projects here, so. Yep, no problem.
Yes.
Okay, I have two questions. Number one, Russell Landing Boardwalk, is that the one on the beach that was voted on before we got on the board?
Russell Landing is on the west side. It's out off of, I think it's 2006 or 2007. It goes along Hall Creek. It's closer to the Bull Creek campground area out there. It's an elevated boardwalk where we had done some repairs following some hurricane damage. It's a elevated wooden boardwalk surrounded by water and moisture. So this was the money that was remaining on that project.
Okay, and the other question I had, is this this was what the estimate was for the skate park?
I think the quote was like 233 and change. We made it 244, I think, for the budget. We were
But that was
waiting.
to redo it, right?
That is only to replace about half of the equipment that's there. So what you have now are metal structures, and the cost estimate that we had gotten was to replace about half of what you have, and some of the equipment has already been removed there.
So I'm a little confused as to the value of that kind of a fund going to a facility that we don't know what type of activities really going there. Has anyone gotten any kind of count of people and how often it's used?
The skate park in Flagler, it's in the Wadsworth Park.
Yeah,
thing.
I'm familiar with the park. I have
it's-
never seen anybody there.
Yeah, it's heavily used from my understanding. We had, this is an issue that actually came up last year where they had supporters from the community come in front of the board asking for the board to have consideration to make some improvements there. We talked about creating a concrete skate park. That discussion continued this year where we were trying to replace the equipment that's there based on the public use and the information that we had
Right.
received a year ago. So
But this is not the concrete. This is just replacing the parts that are there now.
correct. This is just to replace the ramps and structures that are there
Right,
now.
that are worn.
Yeah, so the thought with that, when we had brought this forward at one of the last workshops was, do we go ahead and replace the equipment with the understanding that we know it's going to be time before we're able to move forward with a concrete park, if that is the direction of the board? There was discussion about going ahead and moving forward with the replacement equipment. We also have a placeholder in the budget to look at doing a concrete skate park. I know that there, based on the group that had come forward last year, there may be an opportunity there through fundraising and different things to kind of create this community partnership. And then additionally, I had talked to the city manager in Flagler Beach where they had, I don't know if it was an internal group or if it was a community group, was looking at creation or, is there a need for additional skate park or skate ramp type stuff? And I had shared with them the conversation that we had here and that we would be moving this back to the board for consideration and approval. So
Thanks for clarifying that. I just want
problem.
to make sure that we're all on the same page. Thank
Yep.
you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay.
all right, we'll move forward to the next topic. Next topic is the Flagler Executive Airport, and we just wanted to provide you with an update of the airport and some of the things that we've completed and some of the things that we continue to work on. So recently, we'll start with the survey that went out. So we ended up putting out a customer survey back in December of 2024. We had used the Polko platform to do that. And we had sent this out to hangar tenants and business operators that are at the airport. So overall, we had about 44 surveys, comments received back, which is about 35% participation of the base that we had sent this to. The findings overall were very positive. Feedback and comments that were provided as part of that survey were very helpful. I'll ask Jorge to go ahead and present the survey findings since this is something that he had conducted.
Good afternoon, Chair, Commissioners. We conducted this survey from December 5th until December 19th. We left it open for about 2 weeks. We surveyed all the customers that were on the list for the airport. It was about 125 tenants that we surveyed. We received, as Heidi shared, 44 responses, which were an equivalent of 35.2% of the total. We also received about 266 comments. The majority are very positive. There's some information that Roy is going to be working on to address some of these issues, but the majority, very minor stuff to work on, and the majority are very positive comments. So the first question that we asked was related to the lease type that they hold. We just wanted to understand the mix that we have. And for this particular survey, so we had 86% or 38 respondents were base hangar tenant, and the other 14% were base business operators. No base tied tenants participated. In terms of the overall experience with the Flagler Executive Airport, 95% rated their experience as excellent or satisfactory. The next one is the lease longevity. We have that 32% are tenants that have been in the airport 10 years or more, and we have 25% that fall in the window of between 6 and 10 years. Just to give you a little bit of background on the folks that participated in this process. The next question is, how would you rate the airport's maintenance services? 97.7% rated maintenance services as excellent or satisfactory. Customer service is also very similar. 95% rated customer service as excellent or satisfactory. The service, the ability to process your requests in a timely manner. These are all the requests that come into the airport for services from the tenants. 97.7% of the tenants rated those services as excellent or satisfactory. Level of courtesy or professionalism they obtain from the staff, and 95.4% rated the staff's level of courtesy or professionalism as excellent or satisfactory. Conditions of the fuel facility is another section that we wanted to get some information on. 61% rated the condition of the fuel facility as excellent. Condition of the runways, 82% rated the conditions of the runway as excellent. Guidance system, which includes lightings in the runways, 84% rated the guiding systems as excellent. Prices for leases or rentals, 80% rated those as average, 18% as high, and 2% as low. This is another set of questions that we ask from a little bit different perspective for the facilities and staff. The security and safety of the airport, 75% rated that as excellent. Interacting with airport staff, 80% rated that as excellent. The value that is provided by the products and services that are provided at the airport, 59% rated that as excellent. Overall management of the Flagler Executive Airport, 70% rated that as excellent. And the overall services received as a tenant, 70% rated that as excellent. This is another look at a continuation of the staff facilities rating. Rate your experience while interacting with airport staff, 80% rated that as excellent. The value provided by the airport products and services, 59% rated that as excellent. Overall management of Flagler Executive Airport, 70% rated as excellent. And then overall services rated that it's 70% rated as excellent. Just want to open up for any questions you might have.
Any questions at this point?
Please.
Okay.
So has there ever been another survey that you compare this to, or is this like the first time?
This is the first time that we're doing a survey at the airport. We're adding multiple surveys here at the county just to create first a baseline. We completed the national community surveys earlier last year, and then we'll have a baseline to compare moving forward. We're about to start another one for internal services, departments that provide services to other departments, so we can also establish a baseline and continue to measure progress and efficiency in those. But this is the first time we provided one like these.
And based on the overall excellent to satisfactory survey, will you be doing this again, or is this just a one-time?
Yeah, we should be doing this at least.
Is it in the strategic plan? I think it is.
Yes,
Doesn't
yeah,
it say
to conduct
annual
surveys. Yes,
in the
continue-
strategic
yeah,
plan?
right.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
I have one comment. I see in one of these rate the value provided to you by the airport product or services, 59% is excellent,
Mhm.
because in high school, 59% was failure.
No,
So
yeah,
I'm just
yeah,
looking at everything's 80,
Right.
75, 70. Excellent to me is in a higher
Yeah.
figure.
If you're taking it in the context of grading,
Yeah.
but what this is saying is that at the total that surveyed, 59% said it was excellent. It's not a grade for like A, B, C, or D. It's just that we just divided in terms of, okay, how many folks said it was excellent, it was satisfactory, or non-satisfactory?
Okay, and the total number of people that were
44.
44 out of 44 people, this is
15,
how they
yeah.
rated it. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I will just say too that I think as the first attempt, it's going to allow us to dig in deeper into some of those areas where maybe the score has room for improvement, and find out, like in value, what is the definition of value in the respondents' terms, and start to dig out some of that. Understood.
Yeah, and you can see, yeah,
Excellence is the goal, not just commonality. You need excellence to be providing excellent service and excellence all the way around.
yeah. What we're targeting here is to get the majority of the customers responding to classified as excellent.
Okay.
Right now, we just have the first baseline, and that's the number we have, 59% for that particular one. But there's others that went up to 80, but they're not classified at grading A, B, C, and D. That's not the intent of this. It's just taking the total survey group and determining which one's classified it as the different 3 buckets.
Okay. Just getting a
Yeah.
novice idea. Thank you.
Okay.
And I'm not so sure that an airport this size could be benchmarked against other airports this size. That's not our goals to benchmark, is it?
No, it's not. Yeah, not to benchmark. We could get some elements that we can benchmark in terms of pricing, the price of the leases, the price of gas. We can benchmark if they're conducting surveys similar to us in terms of the customer service. We can benchmark those, but the intent is to improve our service. That's the main intent of this.
So and I can't read through these 200 and something comments. I will, but right at this moment. But the only thing I'm getting is, and again, I'm not into the operation side of it, but when fuel becomes an issue, there's a hard cutoff at 5 p.m. and sometimes they may need extended hours. I don't know, but that's the only thing I've heard about the airport is fuel times.
Okay.
And I just think some smaller airports offer some flexibility or someone to call if they need somebody. But that's the only thing I've heard.
Yeah, I don't think that we have the infrastructure to provide self-service. I probably have to call Roy for that one. In our case, I know that Roy has called staff during the weekend when he knows that somebody's coming that requires fuel services. So that's been accommodated. But at this point, I know that Roy is planning to do an upgrade on the fuel farm that might include that particular address that particular issue.
So these comments that tenants left, are they filtered? Is this 100% of the comments or just?
Yeah, this is the only one that I took off was on the administration one, the side. Somebody left their name and contact. So that's the only piece that I redacted and said where it says best regards. I took that name because I didn't want the number and name to be out there, somebody calling them if it's a public document. But everything else is as it came in.
Talk to me as an administration about what type of oversight we have over there. We have Roy as a director. What do we do in terms of, and don't take it personal, Roy, succession planning, oversight?
Yeah.
Tell me how the administration's involved, because I see we're looking at adding another hangar tonight. We're Van Dam helicopters, right? And they would be building into a 30-year lease.
Right.
And it looks like it's Black Hawk helicopters they work on.
The refurbished,
something like that.
Right, yes.
So tell me, like, as you build that out, what is the oversight our administration has into the airport? Is it just one director? What does succession planning look like? It's getting bigger. I know we're going to master plan it, right? Starting.
Yeah.
But what does this look like? Because it's kind of spotty.
Yeah. So there is a master plan, like you said, that is coming up. We are actually in one of the agenda items. It will be, and I think Heidi touched on this, where on June timeframe, July timeframe, we're wanting to bring a consultant on board to work with us on this master plan. So going through that master plan is going to tell us what we need to plan for moving forward. One of the things that Heidi actually has done is that she's converted one of the positions that exists in the airport to add another layer of supervision. So that adds some help in terms of supervising the employees, which falls into succession planning. As the airport continues to get bigger, and we know that's the plan, we'll have to, from the new revenues that are coming in, be able, because there's an enterprise fund, be able to fund additional FTEs. And that might include another manager or might include other staff. But right now, the amount that we have today, the number of FTEs, is supported by the funds that we have. So as it continues to grow, we'll have to add more resources. But the immediate plan that Heidi approved was to add another layer of supervision, just in case Roy's not there. Instead of having, Heidi be the only person to cover, we have a supervisor in place that can actually take care of the day-to-day operation.
So, and the other thing I will say that I saw in here and I'll think about, we've had a lawsuit this year
Right.
for violation of First Amendment, I believe, right? Right, Sean, correct? Out
I
of the
believe that
airport.
was last year.
Last year, but within the year, it was towards the end of the year. We've had, I think there was someone threatened it recently. And then there are about 6 comments out of 25 that talk about attitude of the airport director in here that they wanted to share with us. And so what's being done to ensure that we look like a favorable, kind, gentler approach? That's all, because I'm hearing it a lot, I'm seeing it a lot, and we've had these lawsuits, and I want to make sure that we're reining that in, that we're not as combative as it appears,
Yeah. So we're sharing this. This is a recent survey. We're sharing this with the board, and we just had high-level conversation with Roy about this survey. We'll continue to work with Roy and staff to address any of these issues. So we haven't had an opportunity to say this is a plan to address the majority of the issues, some of the ones that you just mentioned, but we'll work with Roy to help get there with us.
Yeah, because if we're putting our eggs in a basket that this is economic development in one of the primary locations, and we also need to be, less of these situations and need to come forward. So, and I know that we've talked about it before, because not just based on the sound, but the flight schools and everything else. We've talked about having an advisory committee or an oversight, and I'm sure in the master plan, we'll get there again to have that discussion. And not just because of noise and sound, but,
No, just
economic
overall,
development, we're putting in, this warehouse, what makes sense, what doesn't, does it need help to get there? Does it need oversight outside of administration? I don't know. It's something the board can decide when we go through master planning, but I just, I want to make sure that we're all starting January with no more issues like that.
Yeah. Yeah. There's, comments, like you mentioned, there is also a lot of positive comments. We'll just have to work through it and address those.
There's just
to
got to
make sure-
change.
Yeah.
Well, it appears there's 2 people that aren't happy.
Well, there's 5 comments.
Yeah, but 2 people that vote no on everything. They're dissatisfied. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the comments, right, and the lawsuits and the threats. It's just an image. If we got to clean it up. That's just. Then I'm just one of 5 saying that. But hopefully it's a better year for that.
And I would just add that, I've been proponent of us doing these surveys internally and externally because we have to benchmark our operations and moving forward, this is the first one. This is the basis now moving forward. And I think it's a good opportunity to work on those improvements that you've mentioned and setting parameters. So good first step. And I'm glad that we finally got to do this and can review it. So
Apparently fix the gate.
Yeah, I
Everyone's
think
like,
there's
"Fix
a
the
gate,
fix the
yeah.
gate."
If
Fix
it's a
the
gate
gate.
that, there's a gate that a
Western gate.
tenant actually damaged. We were waiting for insurance to cover it because it was done by a tenant that left. But I think that if it's, I know if there's a possibility of us fixing it and taking pictures of what would look before so the insurance can cover it because it came in the comments, but it was a tenant that, prior tenant that left that actually damaged it, the gate. In terms of providing coaching and growth for our directors, we all, as director, are growing. This organization is growing, so we'll continue to help the directors move in the right direction and help them. There's going to be more training happening from an HR perspective. Charlie and the new training specialists are going to be putting some trainings, not only for the directors, but managers and supervisors, because people get promoted to these positions and they don't know how to write a performance evaluation or know how the budget works or know how to treat behavioral issue with employees. So we're going to be increasing that moving forward with this new position that we have at HR, and Charlie's going to be leading that so we can actually have training for these individuals to get promoted so they can actually do the job that is expected by the county.
I have one more question for you. So we talked about a tenant,
Mhm.
the car rental place.
Right.
Is that part of this airport
That
facility?
is one of the
So
tenants.
that's one of the tenants,
Business
besides the restaurant.
rentals. Right. That's
The
another.
restaurant's been renovating forever, it seems to me.
Mhm.
So I have a question about where that stands, and that can be discussed at any time. But I've had people comment
Mhm.
about going there and there's no restaurant and it's been months and stuff like that. I have used the airport facility
Mhm.
and the parking is unmanageable as usual. So many parking is unmanageable. You have 80 cars there in 40 spots. And people at 5 o'clock or 5:30 when we're returning a rental car that I did, those poor kids are running around crazy trying to get everybody in, and there's no place to pull in, pull out. It's fenced in. It's doing no benefit to the business. They were wonderful, but they're working on a string. So we're talking about all these upgrades, and yet our tenants, I think, are, I don't know, being unaddressed for the needs that they may have. This is just something that's coming because I just got this 10
Okay.
minutes ago.
Yes, yeah.
But I'm looking at the tenants, and if I was paying rent, I'd want to make sure that I didn't have to juggle cars. They have to move 7 cars to get 1 car out. That's not a facility that most airports have, because I've been renting from airports
Mhm.
for probably 30 years. So that's a concern I have in my mind is how do we make them more efficient, like with the rest of and to get that restaurant finished, or move on to somebody else who's going to get it finished. That's
Yeah.
in my set. I don't know how it's set up, but
Yeah.
that's my concern.
In terms of the restaurant, I believe that the last time in December, I heard that they were planning, probably Heidi can comment on this one, they were planning to finish mid to late January. Is Heidi?
I believe so. I think when we redid the lease on that facility, I think that they took on more than they thought they were going to encounter. So it has taken them longer. Originally, they thought they were only going to be shut down for a few months, and it has been a lot longer. Last I heard, it was mid to end of January, but I think that time frame's probably extended out a little bit further. I did walk through the facility. You can see that they're making great progress, and it's going to be beautiful when they're done. But I think that they've, probably took on, it ended up, once you start peeling back the onion, there's a lot more work to do there. But with regard to the tenant space, like the car rental, they lease what they want. If they needed more property or wanted to acquire more land, they lease the footprint that they have. So I know that it has evolved over time and their space has gotten larger and larger. They've added a car wash. They've done a lot of improvement. But if in that case with that company, if they wanted to acquire more in their lease space, by all means, they just need to work with us to do that. But you will see parking improvement out there with the development of a new terminal facility. You'll have, the roundabout, some roadway improvements. You will have some additional parking. That parking area for the restaurant will get cleaned up a little bit. So you will see that as part of that next plan or project.
Thank you, because it seems to be a little crusty, for lack of a better word, and challenging for them as well as for driving through there. You never know what you're going to see. Thank you.
Can I comment?
Yes.
So I did meet with the owner or the leasee on that property. He's very happy with the service that he's received from the county. He did say pretty much the same thing Heidi said. They kind of got ahead of themselves. They're very, very ready and willing to get this thing going. But he in no way blamed it at all on the county staff. It was just, again, a building that needed more help than I think he thought it did. So once the leasehold improvements are done, we'll have a happy situation over there. And just an overall comment on customer service. If we're going to be in the leasing business, we need to be open to customer service. Right. For every one unhappy no, they tell 15 people about their one unhappy experience. So it's all stats. Customer service should be a very high priority. Mm-hmm. They're our paying customer. We are going to have one or two outliers. There's no business model out there that doesn't, but they have just as much a voice as everybody else. So sometimes they speak a little louder. Sometimes they're passive aggressive and just tell everybody they want about what a crappy experience they had. So staying on top of customer service and customer service training is definitely a very high priority whenever you're leasing to anybody.
Thank you.
And I believe Roy can probably correct me on this one, but although that building where the attorney and enterprise are based out of has been there a while. It was built for another company, but has morphed into those. The enterprise designed the other improvements. I don't believe we improved. That was their doing, their design, and they're trying to, and then it goes back to what Heidi said. If they need more area, then they'll need to get with us.
I understand. It's just, I'm pointing out things that I think the average person sees and asks, and I've seen it on social media, things like that, and we don't want to be rated lower by the public than what our own guests are using or our own customers are using. So I'm just concerned about the perception that nothing's getting done or something's getting done or it's not done and not prepared. So I just want to make sure we're on top of our game as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great.
Anything else?
Any other questions on the survey? Okay. Will we be doing a review of 7E and F? That was ones that were brought up as we're going to need additional comments or questions. So I wanted to have time to do a review of E and F during the workshop in case.
We can pull it up. I don't have tonight's agenda in front of me, so I know that they are airport agenda items, but I don't know exactly which ones they are. So we can, when we get through the rest of the airport
Okay.
stuff to give you, if there's something
Let's
we
do that at the
neglected.
end then. Okay.
I did want to comment, though. I know that I have it in the notes for tonight's meeting, that Van Dam lease agreement, the hangar. We were going to pull that. The tenant that we are working with wanted to do an amendment to that. There was some timing going back and forth with the time that we publish and the need to get it out there. So that one we were planning on pulling and bringing back to you hopefully in February. So that one we will be taking off tonight's agenda.
Thank you.
So moving forward, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the Flagler Executive Airport Overlay Ordinance. The ordinance is really a zoning tool used to regulate land use and development around airports. The primary purpose is to promote safety, compatibility, and economic efficiency while protecting the operational integrity of the airport. I think there's probably been a little misunderstanding or the way that the public interprets this. This is established to protect the airport. It doesn't work the other way around. It's not used as a tool for the residents that live there. This is something that is established to really protect the integrity of the airport. Some of the key purposes for creating that ordinance would be like safety, to minimize the risk to people and property in the areas near airports, maybe by regulating heights of structures, vegetation, things like that. Land use compatibility, protecting areas around the airport for aviation-related compatible commercial industrial uses. Talks about economic development, encourage development of aviation-related businesses and industries in proximity to the airport, leveraging the airport as an economic asset, preserving the airport's role as a hub for transportation and commerce, and contributing to the local and regional economy. It talks about protecting airspace, safeguarding navigable airspace from encroachments that could endanger flight operations. And it even talks about providing a framework for managing future airport growth while balancing community concerns. So that is something that we are working on and have created. I provided in your backup, you have a copy of the draft ordinance. It was created in October of 2023. We did share it with FDOT back on October 31st of 23, hadn't gotten a response. We did follow up with them on October 1st of 2024. We do recognize that the central office up in Tallahassee has had some turnover. They're short-staffed in the planning side. It's not a requirement or a law that we have to get FDOT input into this ordinance. However, we thought it would be good if we at least had their feedback prior to adopting it, but we could move forward as we've been waiting now for, close to 16 months. We could move forward with this. We plan to advertise in January or February of this year, and then we would bring it back for consideration and adoption in March. You'll have a first and second reading in March. I know that there had been some concern over the PTGA agreements that we have with FDOT, where it talks about the creation or having an ordinance in place. It just means that we will, maintain conformance with the requirement. They know that we've been working on this. I did provide to you in your backup an email that we had received from our counterpart at FDOT District 5, which is the people that we deal with, because we are a part of District 5, where they do support us moving forward with our PTGA in support of the airport, with the understanding that they know that we are working on this and that we are moving this forward. So I did want to just share that with you because it is something that we've been working on. And then I don't know if anybody had any questions on that. That PTGA format is the same format that we've always used at the airport for receiving funding from FDOT. There was a concern or a question with whether or not we actually comply. It just says that we will comply. It doesn't mean that we are in compliance right now. This is something that remains that we've been working on with FDOT now for well over a year.
And what does PTGA stand for?
I'm gonna have to pull it up. It's public transportation, I think, grant agreement or something.
Okay, thank you. Just for clarification, thank you.
Chair.
Yes.
Where is Palm Coast on adopting the zoning ordinance? I know that their board pushed it forward. Since they're the one who create basically outside of the airport, zoning, where are they on adopting it? Does anyone know?
I would defer to Sean. It's not something that
I
I'm
don't
familiar
think
with.
that our planning staff has heard back from them.
Yeah, it's been a year since they.
And we really need to, because for the benefit of the board members and the public who may be focused on this issue, our jurisdiction around the airport is rather small. This draft ordinance, this is the first I've seen it. It does create rules that would be in place within the city of Palm Coast. And as long as they don't have a conflicting ordinance, we could impose those rules on them, but it would be much better to do it in a coordinated way.
And I recall when we brought this up, because it was July of 23 that we brought this up. and we all came to a consensus on adopting the zoning because it was due in 2016. They took it to their board like the month after, and they all came to a consensus. So they were supposed to be adopting it as well. And it's really important that they adopt it since, I mean, so I think maybe we need to maybe decide if we have a consensus to send them a letter or an update asking them to follow through with their adoption, or I don't know if that's something we can do.
We could at least put it as an agenda item on our upcoming meeting as well with the different governments. Have a discussion.
Yeah,
on that
because
and
they've
make
got a
sure.
whole new board since then, but
And,
yeah.
and I would
the
assume
terms-
we could share our ordinance with their legal as well to make sure that there's no conflicts before we start advertising or
Certainly.
okay.
Should we have a time sensitive on that? Should we have a time sensitive for that to occur?
Well, we have a timeline, so I would assume that Sean will work within the timeline. They wanted to get that item back to us in March.
Okay, thank you.
And just, I know you said that it benefits the airport, but the statute 33302 actually says that this is being put into place to benefit occupants of land and airport hazards, the airport, but also occupants of land in its vicinity and in the general interest of public health, public safety, and general welfare to prevent airport hazards and land uses around it. So I think they meant for it to not only be for airport, but for the vicinity around it. That's my guess.
Yes.
So if I could chime in, I think I might have started this beast, but if you look on page 29 of 40 on the grant that we're getting ready to sign, it says that the local government requirement is two things: airport zoning ordinance and local comprehensive plan. So I was very familiar with the local comprehensive plan. Adam provided me a copy. But when it came to the airport zoning ordinance, I got a draft of one in my email. So I'm glad there's a timeline. I want to thank Sean and Heidi for their quick response to this situation at hand. But I'm kind of a stickler for black and white. So this became an issue with me because, I mean, I didn't even know what an airport zoning ordinance was. I just didn't know if we had one or not. So therefore, it led to the question. So that's going to depend upon how we feel, email or no email. Is this going to be enough to push back until March when we have the appropriate paperwork in place? We can say we will, but as a governing body, we don't. We don't have one, right? We don't. So that's where I was coming from. That's kind of where I'm going with this. I think it's been, then when I got the history on it, I felt that it's time to put some motion behind what's going on. So I personally am not, it's not in my best interest to say that I have something that we don't have. If it didn't say the word requirement, I might be okay with that. But it very specifically says in the exhibit that we need one.
Okay. Any other comments on that? Now, as far as moving forward with that, the DOT letter, as this is an agreement and funding agreement with DOT, does the email showing there's a favoritism in moving forward, that they understand us in the process and that we can move forward?
Yes, I provided it to you in your backup. You'll see there's an email response from Allison McCuddy. She's our contact at FDOT District 5. This is who we work with on all of our PTGA agreements. we ask the question about moving forward, and they say, yes, I'm completely comfortable with moving forward with our PTGA as you continue to move forward with the airport zoning ordinance. So they, from an FDOT standpoint, they know that we've been working on this because we reached out to them 16 months ago for some of their input. And you may recall over the last 16 months, we've entered into several PTGA agreements, all with the same requirement. They know what we're working towards. If they had hesitation, they would have responded, no, please do not move forward. And the one I think that is on the agenda tonight is for the $5 million that came out of the legislative appropriation. But I think at your last meeting, you also had a PTGA on there for the airport that was approved, so.
Well, Commissioner Carney, I appreciate your sharp eyes in identifying that and for bringing it forward so that staff had an opportunity to look into that and contact DOT. I think it's important to, when we come up with issues like that, to be able to bring them forward and help staff work things out, or to either verify or pull up some other information when we identify something. So appreciate that. Anybody else with comments on the agreement?
Not on the agreement. I mean, I think it's completely avoidable. It just seems like that thing's been lingering out there for a while, the zoning. But she says in there that she's comfortable with it, but we did tell her we'd be done by March, So we have to assume that it's going to go off without a hitch and be enacted by this board in March.
So we've got, as a summary, we've got the direction to move forward with the ordinance.
Yeah.
We've got direction to start working with City of Palm Coast in a public meeting so we can talk about their approval of the ordinance. So the sooner the better that they get a copy and have an opportunity to review it, the better. Anything else I'm missing?
No, no. We're not contingent upon them passing their zoning as well, correct?
That's
No,
right.
just ours.
Just ours.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, very good. Good discussion.
Just to clarify, did you want me to add this then to the joint workshop on February 5th when we meet with the cities?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I'll email City of Flagler Beach to let them know.
Right, and so that they have time, we'll get the copy so they have time to review it and get some feedback.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right.
So then that brings up the Flagler Executive Airport Master Plan. This is something that we anticipate taking about 18 months to complete. We will be hiring a consultant to perform the update for Flagler County. We are looking to advertise the scope of that job in June of 2025. State funding will be available July in 2025. So then we look to award the contract and begin sometime around July, August timeframe. In doing so, internally, we kind of talked about the creation of a working group, and we would like to bring them on ahead of June to get them familiar with Flagler County and the airport, the two strategic plans that we have, because this working group will work closely with the consultant over an 18-month period with the purpose of updating our airport master plan. There's a lot of benefits, I think, to bringing on that working group to collaborate with the consultant. I think you look at a diverse stakeholder representation, people that are experts in their field that can provide input and oversight to the process, as well as help with some facilitated decision-making, discussing priorities, identifying challenges, things like that. And then I think overall efficiency in plan development and strategic alignment. So what we were looking at is potentially a 5-member board that we would like to come up with some parameters of how they would function, but they would work with the consultant through quarterly meetings And we would include this in our solicitation as we work to find and hire a consultant. We were looking at, what would the potential membership look like? We are looking at people that have some airport experience, whether they're an airport tenant or some aviation-related business, people with a planning background or commercial real estate, economic development, to kind of be the makeup of that board or working group. So if the board is okay with this is something that we would then work on defining what their scope and role would be, and then we would begin advertising for people to be part of that working group. As I said, we'd be bringing them on probably in June or ahead of June to get them familiar with the county strategic plan as well as the airports.
I have a quick question on that. When we go to, offer boards, do the people that are going to participate on these boards, or do they have to be local?
Typically, they're residents of Flagler.
County residents?
They're voting members. So yes, it is usually people that reside here because they're going to have the ones that have the greatest impact.
Right.
So we like to have that diverse stakeholder group be people that live here.
Yeah, you mentioned a diversity of professional backgrounds. My concern is if we don't have those people willing to stand up and be a part of that, can we go outside of our local area? Just wondering if I don't want to put people into something that isn't fully in their heart, and it's just a personal, hey, that's a good idea, or I'm willing to do it. But can you go outside of the scope if you're not finding? Because we're going to be, I guess, a part of deciding those things as well. So I just didn't know what the rules or requirements really are at this point. So
I think we could. It would be whatever the pleasure of the board is. Typically, it's people that reside here that are registered voters. So, but we could add language in there that if we ran into a challenge of not getting, adequate representation locally, that we do look to the outside. We could put something like that in there.
I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but I'm always out of the box person. So I just want to make sure that we have the most choices and the best choices, because this is a big adventure coming ahead of us. Thank you.
So who do we want? So who will be appointing those positions?
They'll come back
Staff
to the
or
board.
back to the board?
It'll come back to the board, but if the board is inclined to move forward with this, we'll start working on like the forms and kind of creating what that scope and role will be for them.
I know we've had different ways to go about this, either having, in my past experience, each board member coming up with a name and then a few at large. That might increase it beyond the 5, but or we could do like we're doing the IDA, which is just a public call for people to come forward and put their names in. So, we could talk about that a little bit. If anybody has any thoughts?
Yeah, under planning background, is that eliminating any of our own staff from being involved?
I don't know if it removes them from being involved. Our own staff will be involved at some extent to begin with. I think what we were looking for was more community buy-in, transparency, having people that aren't necessarily Flagler County government employees, but people that, reside in the community that would like to be part of the process. I think it goes a long way with building, public trust and having transparency.
I just see a problem. I just see a difficulty, not a problem, but a difficulty in the economic development person and commercial development. Maybe you've got some Klein folks that can help. I'm surprised that there's only one airport tenant. You might want a pilot and a business tenant, but one airport tenant, I think you might want more than one. You might want one from each sector. Aviation-related business is probably somebody like our consultant or somebody that, don't we have someone that we use that we're voting in tonight? that gives us,
That's different. This, like aviation-related business, who may be a business that comes to mind, you currently have Delta Engineering. They
Okay.
are FAA certified. They are aviation-related business at the airport. I don't know if somebody that works there would like to be part of this.
okay,
That's kind of, I think, when we were looking at this, and this is not a guaranteed list. This is just kind of a potential membership makeup, and we can fine tune the details, whatever the board desires.
and just a question, do you set this up by resolution? Do you set this committee up by resolution and then you dissolve it after the project's done, correct?
I believe so. Yeah, it would just be set up for a specific purpose, and then it would basically dissolve when done.
It should sunset when it's done, yeah.
So just a suggestion for the board to think about is maybe we send a formal invite to Embry-Riddle. Maybe they have faculty or staff that are specific to airport planning that,
Especially the
that-
planning side, yeah.
yeah, that they maybe could appoint to it that would like to assist,
Great idea.
that we could get somebody from their faculty to.
We do have some of them that live in our community already
Yeah.
that have helped in the past with some of the airport discussions, so.
I don't know if we could maybe send a formal letter to the dean or something and ask if they have any faculty that meet certain criteria for
I
planning.
think you want to be cautious on that
Maybe
only
one.
so you're not picking favoritism. It may not be favoritism, but it may appear that way. I think if you make it open, you make it open to everybody.
Yeah, or just let them know that they
Or,
have someone, because they we have
anybody
that
could
planning
contact them or tell them about it, but I don't think we should put anything
Yeah.
down and asking, you're here,
Yeah.
so we want you. I don't know that that's inviting a board of local people. I also question the commercial real estate part of it, because we're not going to be selling this
I think that they.
other than design, and that would be a designer or maybe an architect versus.
We do work with commercial real estate people that bring clients to the airport that are looking for commercial space
Okay,
to locate their business there. That's why we kind of stuck that in there.
okay. I just didn't see where it fits in, other than being sales towards more tenants. Okay, thank you.
And I think to play it safe, we do an advertisement notice, and then that can be distributed to just about anybody without showing favoritism. And from what I'm hearing, I guess it's an open, at this point, we'll treat it like the IDA, but if anybody has specific people in mind, let them know to apply once we get the advertisement out.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions on Airport Master Plan, the working group?
So then that's really it for the presentation. We can certainly look up those two agenda items if you'd like to talk about those that were on the.
I know
Tonight's meeting.
Mr. Seeger's here. Would you be free to talk about those two items? Willing? Okay.
We could, we can bring up the two agenda items, and I didn't write down what numbers they were.
7E and F.
E and F, okay.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon, sir.
Chair and Commissioners. My name is Roy Seeger. I'm the Director of Flagler Executive Airport. I've been asked to talk about 7E and 7F. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, 7E is a consideration of resolution and public transportation agreement, FTOT, an amount of $5 million to assist with the funding for construction of the general aviation terminal facility at the Flagler Executive Airport. So that's basically bringing in so this will be the actually fourth grant we've got for this. So last year, we've got the first PTGA, and then we've got the First Amendment, then the Second Amendment. Now, this one's a little different. It's the same as it's still it's an agreement, but they had to do a different PTGA because it's a different pot of money, because this money is coming from the state appropriation fund. So this is so that is what we're looking for tonight, and that's what you were all talking about earlier today. Commissioner Carney brought up about about not having the airport zoning in place, but we do have it. We've been working, like I said, we've been working for that for a while now with FDOT, and like Heidi said earlier, They have been very short-staffed. Reached out to them. We actually reached out to them more than just one time about where this is at, but it was just kind of put on the back burner. But at the end of the day, like Heidi said, it's really just to get their comment. For review and comment, we don't necessarily need it, and that's why we're just elect now to just move forward and get it approved by the commission.
I know when I had one question I had with you on this, and it was really just an oversight for me, but the breakdown of the funding sources was, I think, is what's really helpful. So, because this has been a piecemeal project of getting the funding sources put together, so it kind of puts everything in perspective.
Well, not really. I mean, a piecemeal, right? But what happened was FDOT kept coming up with more money. So they would say, Roy, can you take this money? Can you take this money? Yes, yes, yes. And that's why we just, as money came up available, we kept taking it.
Okay. There may be public comment questions after this, so we'll go through the commissioner review and questions if anybody has questions on 7E.
Are there any other questions on 7E?
I don't see, well, it's, if the packet was here. It's not on this packet that we got at the door.
Not only that, Chairman, did it come in piecemeal, but if you look at the capital improvement plan,
It's on the agenda.
it also went up by like $4 million. So it's good to see it all come together at, with a real number, with an actual number of what it's going to be. And we did approve that bank loan a couple of meetings ago, so it does look like we're totally funded at this point.
Correct.
And then 7F was on the qualified firms.
So, right, so 7F was consideration of qualified firms for request of statement of qualified under the RFQ 25002 Quebec Aviation Consulting Services. So every 5 years, we are required to go out and get new consultants for the airport because we accept FAA and FDOT grants. So we do this process every 5 years. We submitted it out there. I believe there was 9 responses to it. We selected 2 of the 9 to move forward. That was Horrell Tanner and Associates and Avcon Incorporated. So again, once you have engineers like this basically on staff or on call, is that we can use them for anything that is below on construction projects, anything that's below $7 million. I think it just went up to like 7.5 million. Anything above that, then we'd have to go back out for RFQ. So actually, once we get these consultants on board, we actually have to go back out again here shortly, just for the CEI services for the terminal building, because that project is over 7.5 million. We're going to have to go out and get consultants for that as well. And then again, for anything that is, but that doesn't preclude one of these 2 from getting it, but it just says they have to go out for reselection for that. And then anything that's a planning study over $500,000, you have to go out for that. So you can only use your continuing engineer services for anything under $7.5 million and $500,000 for studies.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Anything else? All right, very good. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Have we covered all of the agenda topics? Did you want to go over anything else did you get all the information from us on budget and CIP?
We did, yeah. I don't have anything else to go over at this time unless there's anything on tonight's agenda that somebody would like to talk about or bring up.
Will that be discussed tonight or voted on tonight then? Okay.
The 2 that you just
The 2 that we
heard
just
from,
discussed,
they
yes.
are.
I did, okay. I just want to make sure we still have that on our agenda. Okay, thank you.
I
Commissioner Benson.
just have a comment, maybe even a consensus item real quick, just in relation to projects. Because I woke up a little bit thinking like this year was kind of like Groundhog Day all over again. We've got a lot of projects up in the air right now. We just got so many. I almost feel to some extent feel bad for all the staff and administration because it's a lot to juggle, and we have a lot of state funds. They've got deadlines. I was thinking about Bull Creek. It's been a year since we had those funds, and nothing's occurred out there. Cattleman's has only had one meeting. There's not a whole lot of movement there, and I don't know what's going on in everyone else's projects, but it might be similar. I'm sort of thinking that we need some sort of like milestone reporting, almost like a transparency, like our transparency dashboards on each project to keep me honest with people, because people are always like, where is everything? Where's this? Where's that? You know, they hear about it, they don't see it. And to keep staff moving forward and telling us what phase they're in with each project, and to make sure that we're hitting the deadlines we need to hit. You know, and not just to those capital projects, but I was thinking about beach management. This is I'm in year 3 and we're trying to solve for that still. I know, you know, and I feel bad, like, you know, like how do we get to the solution here? But even just more specific, I'm really worried about the state fund projects and hitting deadlines. And I'm worried about these conservation funds. And I'm wondering if we should have some sort of, we can get the administration to set up some sort of like milestone reporting, you know, that have the deadlines that in front of us, the amounts, where you're at in the phase, and just really regular updates. So 1, you're keeping me honest with the public, and 2, we know where you're at and if you're running behind, you know, because I mean, like Bull Creek's, that money goes back to the state, I think, March of 26, and it took a year to get to, well, we don't have anything yet. You know, and we've had those funds for a year. And I'm not picking or criticizing. I'm just saying, like, I feel the
Enormity.
I feel overwhelmed for staff. I worry about bench strength on some of this. And you know, do you need more project management? I know you talked about getting some temporary. Is it going to be enough? I just can't afford something to blow up at last minute on all of this. And I even think Senator Leak made a comment about all the enormity of our projects that we got and how are we doing on that in that delegate meeting. So it's not criticism. It's more of, you know, help me help you, and help you help me, keeping me straight on everything so that it's getting executed. And what do you need from us to get you there? Because it's a lot.
And I'm on board because my comments are timelines on capital, exactly comment I wrote down when we were talking about that. I think it's especially because the money has, you know, hard drop dead dates that we have to stay on top of. So whether we do monthly or
we're going into budget.
Or workshop, you know, bring it back to the workshop since we've set that schedule up.
Now, do we need to add a contract role for you for project management? Do you need that? Let me know now, you know, let us know, because we don't want any, it's not a slight on everybody. It's more of like, let me help you. Let me help this go successfully.
Well, I certainly appreciate it, and I know that we talked during our one-on-one, and I had shared with Commissioner Pennington, like in the engineering department, we've had vacancies for quite a while. We didn't backfill a position that was previously held by Richard Zion, for instance, and then recently Weldon had left to go back to work for FEMA. So we have those 2 positions. We're actually moving forward. I believe it was last Friday, they were making job offers, conditional job offers on those, one as a project manager and one as a program manager. So I think that that'll definitely help in the engineering department. I apologize because although you may not know that there has been any progress made, internally we have met with the user group out at the, looking at the fairgrounds and the creation of the, what will be Cattleman's it's really going to be a facility that can probably be used for dining for the Cattlemen's Cracker Day event, but largely it'll probably be used, for a shelter or another community center. We did have those meetings. They did have some homework that they were going to go out and do, and then they were going to report back. With Bull Creek, we did meet with the folks that are looking to occupy the restaurant. We did need to get some of their input on layout of the kitchen. Now that we've gotten that, we need to move forward with purchasing it. I think that there was a snag more on the procurement side of whether or not we could utilize that vendor or if we had to bid it out. I don't know where we are with that, but I can certainly find out. The comment that I had, though, was to do the CIP reports. I kind of alluded to that in the beginning when we talked about budget and stuff like that.
I don't know if we use SharePoint here among staff, like a SharePoint site. I don't know if you have SharePoint links. It's like let's say you're keeping a running Excel, and I can click on the SharePoint at any time and see the updates live. I don't know if that's something you do here, but it's almost like rather than go to you and get an update, I'd rather see the milestones and people constantly plugging them in so that I know every day or not every day, but once every couple weeks, where's it at, what got work done.
We could create something. It's probably going to be in the OneDrive, something like that we could create and then just maintain, and then you guys could have access to it. And publicly we can bring it up if we're going to have workshops on a more regular basis. One of the things I was going to bring up later tonight was looking at, now that we're going into the legislative session, what is the board's desire on receiving that information? I know that you get it from, Small County Coalition, you get it from Florida Association of Counties. What we're asking our lobbyists to do is to provide weekly updates that we can share with the board. We also are looking at the potential of doing maybe a Teams meeting with them monthly, and then alternating weeks, we would have Holly as our legislative liaison, providing public meetings every month with bills that we're following, news that we found, and things like that. So I kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit anyways, whether it's now or tonight, but we can certainly work on creating some of those dashboards on CIP through the OneDrive and kind of get that information out to you. The one I think that presents the largest challenge is the first environmental appropriation that we had gotten for the $3 million, because when it was written, it was very specific as to where it can be used. We are working with a landowner. We did get some appraisals back. We still need to follow up with them to see if there's a willingness to move forward with that. But that's the only one that I've got concern about, because it is very specific in nature and how it can be applied. But the other stuff we have, I know this afternoon at 3:30, you've got your Land Acquisition Committee meeting again to fine tune some of those properties as far as a path moving forward for the use of the other money that we have in conservation lands.
I was just wondering, we're talking about more IT stuff when we're talking about that type of a thing. And if there was just one point person that would be available to respond at times, because I can go on the computer, but if I get 3 different people sending me emails and it's the same email and it's contradictory, which I seem to see constantly, it's a little hard to be able to clarify what is fact and what is changed fact and what is the fact for today. And, these things are great, but if you can't read them, it's irrelevant. So rather than waste another couple hours trying to figure out what's the date on this and that, and it's great to have the score, if there was just a point person that doesn't have overload that could keep up with that, that might be another option, or an additional part. And maybe that would be the person who would be able to do the what'd you say, SharePoint. Same thing. I was saying point person, she's saying SharePoint. So I think there's 2 ways of looking at it, and maybe that would be available to people as well.
I
That's
think
all.
the document that we would create would be kind of like a live living document that multiple people could go in and update. The problem with having one person, we don't have one person that's managing these projects. So like in engineering, you could have 4 or 5 people. Jonathan plays a part in some of in the shelter project, you've got general services on some other capital things. So you may have a dozen people, so it's not just one. So I think if we can create a document or a location through the OneDrive that maybe, it can be a live document.
As long as it's managed, that's what my concern is.
Right.
Mismanagement versus,
That was just my
management.
suggestion, because I've, in private, everything's a project. We're all Six Sigma and everything. So if you just had one person reaching out to here's your, I don't want to get into it, but here's your partners on this project, here's your contacts, and they're reaching out, getting the updates for the week. Someone managing the project management, not the project, but the overall, so that we all had live real-time updates, and they were keeping everybody going so that we were hitting milestones, so that we don't end up losing anything or it's just a lot. And I think it's my understanding that the state, some of our new partners coming in are also wondering if we're going to be able to get it all pulled together. So that's it. Because I reach out to you, and you've got a lot on your plate, and I understand. And so, but I think it would help to have somewhere milestone reporting and someone keeping them updated, so that we get this
Well,
information.
I think we can start with at least a monthly update.
Yeah.
As a recurring workshop. And beyond that, I think, I don't know what else to ask for.
It needs, I think you're just going to have to create a project management board where you're just got all of them listed, because it's a lot. And what are the deadlines you need to hit so that we hit the funding properly, and where you at, and what's a delay, and just so, we're on top of it.
It's a follow-up system that has to be presented or invented, because I can ask you, and I can ask you, and I can ask you back there, and get 3 different timelines, because we're all not on the same page. And I think that's where all these questions and these comments come up, because we're not on the same page, because you know stuff we don't know and so forth. So at least, like I say, a point person, but Leanne put it in much better wording than I did.
So we have consensus for some timelines.
Yeah, just
And-
milestone reporting.
Okay.
And then she asked, one last comment was you asked about the legislative upcoming. I did ask Holly for more specifics on the ag extension, because I think we're going to need a little bit more than this on each project, more than a one-pager, to get, and then, to be able to talk to them about it in March, have some more in-depth, some pictures, some things like that. And I guess I wasn't here for the delegation, but I guess they kind of drove home the point that we sort of need to have a match, or something that resembles a match would be strong. So I don't know if we're a little late in the game to talk about that for these projects, but we do need to point out what there is of a match of land or whatever it's going to be. We need to really drive that home when we speak with them. And maybe we do this exercise a little bit earlier this year, so that we can talk about if, having a match, if it's important to get it done, So maybe we do the exercise of legislative priorities for next year a
No,
little
but
early.
it really wasn't a match that they're looking for.
Yeah.
They're looking for that we have skin in the game, that we are trying, for instance, the Eco Center. We've got 10.
Well, that's a good project.
10.3
It
million of
explains the
our own,
match, right,
our own
yeah.
money. We're only asking for 3.2. So I had a chance to talk with Sam afterwards, and he was very pleased with our presentation, but he was looking for, do we have skin in the game in those other 3 projects?
Well, and it's probably, I think it's too late to go through them, right, and say, hey, maybe we curve
we
off
need to-
money, or maybe
Yeah, we need to do that.
maybe we need to
And
do that
Staff
if
is
we're
already
really
working
wanting.
on, staff is already working on that, so we can go back to them with a, with a report that says, yeah, We got money in there. We're trying to do this ourselves. And if we don't, then it's not going to be, doesn't bode well for them helping us.
I mean, we've given them good reasons why they should do it, some
Yeah,
of these, but
right.
I'm worried that unless there's something real specific here we want to get done, we shouldn't revisit. It's a little late.
Well, I know
Well,
Holly is like immediately that afternoon had already pulled material together.
Right.
So, I mean,
Right.
the response was quick. So I think next workshop unless there's some time at the end of the meeting tonight to talk about additional material that's been pulled for the different projects.
If I could, the program guide that you have there is really just a summary. It's intended to only be one page, because if we all added all of our details, that book would be too great, and they really don't want to read all of that. And what we found is that if, that's just kind of like a teaser to them, we omit the dollar amount for a reason, because sometimes they view it as sticker shock, that if they really are supportive of a project, we provide additional backup and detail to them. When we go to work on the legislative forms, you're limited by the number of characters that you can put in the box, so you can't put everything you want to put in there. For instance, last year when we were working on a project, we had provided them the entire stormwater plan. It was, 400 pages. They came back and said, "Thank you for providing it. Can you now give me a briefing? Because I'm not reading 400 pages." So we will continue to come up with executive summaries. We do, in addition to that program, we do rack cards. We provide executive summaries of the projects. We pull together the information. We've already met internally and talked about what that skin in the game looks like for each one of our 4 projects. We were asked to share that back with our lobbyists so that it could go back to the 2 offices of Representative or Senator Leak and Representative Greco, so that they have that information. Like I said, that sometimes it becomes information overload, that, you give them kind of like the highlights is what, maybe you see in that book. And then as we get closer to Tallahassee, we will have additional documentation and information that we can share where maybe it is more specific. And we can certainly bring that to you at a workshop ahead of us going to Tallahassee to kind of fine tune that. But, we have already had some of those discussions internally, so.
Thank you. Any other commissioner comments before I go to public comment?
Just an update on the MSBU, MSTU issue, just so that if anybody asks you, you understand what we're doing. We as a commission have approved those 2 things. So but it's just a tool in our toolbox, and we're not going to do anything in 2025. There will not be a MSBU or MSTU on their tax bill. And we don't know if there's going to be one in 26. This is part of the 26 budget process that we're going to go through to decide whether or not we need to enact or actually put in place the MSBU and the MSTU. And I think there's a good chance maybe we don't have to. But just so you all know, that's where we stand. It's a tool in the toolbox, and we haven't said we're taxing you. We haven't done that yet. So it's just a good status, so you all know what to say if somebody asks you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so at this time, I'll open it up for public comment. If there's anybody that wanted to talk on any of the topics we've talked about or something not on the agenda, come on up.
Oh, Richard. He's wounded.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Richard Hamilton, resident of Island Estates in the Hammock. I apologize for my appearance. I turned 75 just over a month ago, and Microsoft sent me a note saying unless I upgraded my brain capacity, I wouldn't be able to survive another 25 years. But so it's just minor. Don't worry about it.
Minor memory upgrade?
Yeah, another 256K memory upgrade too. Anyway, having been at a couple of meetings last week, and I heard some of the discussion that Commissioner Hanson just raised, suggested that maybe I should come down and share a couple of thoughts with you in the minutes we have left. Obviously, meat management is a big priority, and you recognize that, and it's on your slide. I just want to let you know that there still are concerns. Firstly, in regard to the funding. I'm speaking for myself, although I've been this morning at a meeting of our Island of the States neighborhood, and I know the president's going to be sending you a letter as well, in that we still don't fully agree with the funding methods, even if it's 1 year or 2 years from now. If you enact the taxing districts, it's there. And there are questions is why don't you still look at some other alternatives? Why not a CRA for the hammock, which could be funded through things? Why doesn't the hammock have more control if they're the ones that are paying it? Questions like that will be shared with you. The other thing I wanted to bring up on the beach management is the deeming cycle. I know you're aware of it, Commissioner Dance, but it's the cycle applied to quality management. PDSA cycle, it's called Plan, Do, Study, Act. On the beach management, we've done the plan. We've done some of the action. Now we need to study it. Did it work? Does this equilibration theory of the sand moving out and back work? Is that what happened? And if it doesn't, do we need to revisit the plan? We've got LIDAR, we've got ability to do that action. And I think over the next year, we should be doing that sort of study to make sure that the plan we have is in fact the correct plan. On your priorities, I didn't see anything about the comprehensive plan. I heard it talk about the strategic plan, but I don't think we finished the comprehensive plan. And that's an interest of me because that takes us out to 2050 when I'll be 100. So I've got an interest in the next 25 years as to how that's going to work out. And I think you need to put that in your priorities. And then the final thing is in any plan, what we know, what we don't know is the big in the woodpile. And we've got fires, you mentioned them in California. Hopefully we're not in the same risks here, but those fires in California are going to drain FEMA. They're going to drain a lot of funds. They're going to put insurance companies out of business. And how is that going to impact us here? I believe in your plan, you need to have a little bit more of reserve, not plow ahead in the assumption everything's going to be rosy. Just keep some stuff in reserve in your plan. So that's it. I'm going to go back and listen to Joe Cocker, who says I can keep my hat on. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment?
Barbara Brody, Island Estates Parkway, Hammock Dunes.
Come on a little closer.
Whoop, this one?
Yep.
Barbara Brody, Island Estates.
Thank you.
Hammock Dunes. I just want to emphasize that there are so many people in the hammock who are against your MSU tax. There was a gentleman named Jim Foster. He put a quick little survey out on Nextdoor. Some of you were tagged in it, never responded. It was about 900 signatures collected just on Nextdoor. We have talked to people in the hammock. I know the board sent a letter saying they support it, but there was never a survey of hammock dunes. There was never ever questioning. The people do not support what you're doing with just taxing a portion of the hammock. And the other HOAs, such as Sea Colony, Yacht Harbor and Beach Haven, all the way up to Marineland, the HOAs there. We've been in contact with them. They are not very supportive at all of what you're planning to do. And when you say you're not planning to use it, we also heard meetings where it wasn't going to be that way. It was going to be shared through the whole county. I'm looking at your little emblem there with the waves on it. Looks like Flagler County is a beach community, and it's not just the hammock. And we're really up in arms about it. We're looking at Plan B in case you do something, like can we go to the state? We're talking to legal professionals who are advising us on how we can have a more fair, so we just want to apprise you because we don't want to be in a fight. We're very upset about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to point out that we did survey the entire Outer Banks.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Good afternoon. I'm Darlene Shelley. I live in Palm Coast, and I've been before you before to speak about concerns with the airport, and been doing lots of research, and actually got to do a tour of the airport with Mr. Seeger, and had the opportunity to go up in an airplane with one of the folks who has a plane over at the airport. And I want to tell you that personally, I am not against in the executive airport. In Flagler, I think it's a great thing for pilots in the community and a chance for substantial revenue for the county. But I do think there's been a tremendous disservice to the residents of Flagler County and Palm Coast for the lack of oversight on the requirements of mitigating excessive noise and threat to the rights of safety, health, and welfare of the residents of the county and the city of Palm Coast. Based on my research, there was to be, they were to look into looking at the lands around the airport for trying to mitigate more homeowners from being negatively affected. But as we look, all the new homes that are coming in are going to be directly in the range of the airport. And the problem is not with pilots, it's the flight schools that are adding hundreds of daily operations. And these flights, like right now, there's a storm coming, but they circle around the city of Palm Coast in succession, 3, 4, 5, 6 airplanes at a time. None of them are over 1,000 feet. Most of them are between 300, 500, 700 feet above our homes. The folks who live in Z and U is not me, but it's a war zone. If you go out to their homes on a day like today, it's constant. It's got to be in violation of zoning for Palm Coast, although airplanes and airplane operations are exempt. Now, is that by design? And does Mr. Seeger meet with the city of Palm Coast officials and try to get it to be a workaround to allow this? And Mr. Seeger says that whether there's 2 planes going around at a time or 6 planes, it doesn't contribute anything financially for the county or the city. Only a tremendous burden on the residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? All right, seeing none, I'll close public comment, bring it back to the board. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, may I ask Heidi another question,
Sure.
please? Are we going to discuss the February 5th intergovernmental meeting tonight at our board meeting?
We can either do it then or we can do it now. We have the joint meeting. I don't know if the board has selected who's going to be our representation at that meeting yet. An agenda did come out today. It's got a few topics on there, the ones that we had talked about previously, whether it be beach management and funding, roads and impact fees, and then stormwater flooding. And I'll certainly reach out and ask about the airport ordinance to have that added. But at some point today, we should probably figure out who's going to represent us so that we can start working towards that. I did want to just mention that just based on the comments from the public, that the comprehensive plan had already gone back to the Planning and Development Board. It is scheduled to come in front of you for consideration and adoption in February. So I did want to just point that out. So it's not fallen off the radar. It's actually should be complete and coming back to you for adoption.
We'll need to workshop that before it comes to a meeting.
We can do that in February.
That's a lot. That's a big document.
And the other thing in February, my position on AHAC should be advertised because I'm no longer the realtor. I don't know, something realtor, yeah, position. So that should get advertised. And I've had some feedback that when we have open positions on committees, is the only thing we do put it on our website under government openings or government committee openings? Is that all we do? Do we send out a email, like an email blast like we get with our announcements and things like that?
I know I mentioned it as part of the opening segments of the meetings under the very beginning.
What's open?
A general notice of some of the ones on a rotating basis, but a general, please visit our transparency page and the specific page so that you can view the openings and when the timing for when there'll be openings so that you can get applications in. That's a recurring message at the beginning of the meetings.
It is, and we put it out through social media on our different platforms. But one of the things that we were looking at increasing is our communication. The board had selected the Observer as kind of like their paper to have public announcements. Jorge and myself actually met with Brian McMillan, I think it was like about a week ago, looking for opportunities where we can increase communication with the public. So we are looking at tapping into his network of distribution as well, sharing some of that information, whether it's vacancies on boards, if we have job openings, different things that we have going on in the county on a regular basis. He'll be doing some weekly promotion of some of those things for us.
Is that going to be a paid situation, or is it going to be part of his paper?
No, it'll be paid as part of our community outreach and part of our communications to the public.
And what other ways are we reaching out? I mean, are we doing Facebook or social media in a different way? Are we doing Nextdoor?
We do Nextdoor, we do Facebook, we do Instagram. We also have our own website. We have podcasts. We've got, our followers that follow us. But then they have different email distribution and different people that follow them as well. So not only will it go out through social media, but it'll also be in print on some of the stuff that they have.
We've never reached out to the local radio station for an all-call or anything like that.
We've used the radio station in the past for certain things. Again, it's paid advertising. And I think that when you look at the distribution or the amount of people that you can probably get with the Observer, it's probably a little bit greater than the radio station.
It used to be a free magazine, a free newspaper, so I don't know how many people actually receive it. They drive around to pick it up, and a lot of times they're bare. And I understand it's cost effective for the business, but is that reaching our citizens to reach out to join with us instead of wonder what's going on and not being able to find that out?
So we're looking at both, not just print, but also electronic distribution, and they have, an online site that they can have. So we're looking at all different means, not just in paper, print, but also electronic and distribution, things like that. So it would cover both.
I think the important thing is mixed media because different demographics are following different types. Old guys like me still read papers. So, but the younger generations are doing the podcasts and different social media. So it's a cross coverage. And don't forget our voice. I think each of us needs to be constantly talking to people that we think are good applicants. So read the openings ourselves and start talking to people about filling openings, those that we know are good fits. All right. So with that, we'll go ahead. I'll take a motion to adjourn, and we'll see everybody at 5 o'clock.
Move we adjourn.
All right. Thank you. We're adjourned. See you a little bit later. 3:30 is land.